live.
Okay. Well, hello, woodworkers. Welcome to the Northeastern Woodworkers Association April meeting. I'm Irving Stevens. I'm the current president, and we are again broadcasting from our learning center on Railroad Avenue in Albany. We are also a bit more organized this month than the last month, thanks to quite a few donations from members to help us acquire some new equipment. So that tonight we have installed some televisions that will help our live audience here to see what's going on up front. We have fewer cables for people to trip over. And we have new mixers also here. So we are on the road with that. What we're going to be doing tonight also is, besides the presentation, as we normally do, we'll have a few announcements. There aren't too many of those, since many of us are in recovery from the showcase last week. We'll have a bit more about that. For members, we are. I want to announce it. I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, we'll go to totally turning announcements.
Yeah, I know. We are well over 500 members again now. We picked up 22 new members during the showcase, and we have those records uploaded into our constant contact file. So I hope many of those new members are tuning in tonight to see this, or can tune in later to watch it at their convenience as part of our YouTube channel. Showcase is now over and done for a year. We're, I think, quite happy that it was probably successful. And there are two components. There's the NAA component that people can see to a large extent when they first walk in to the auditorium, and then there are many programs put on by our partners of Totally Turning. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Todd Gunter, who's the chair of Totally Turning, to say a few things about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Irv. We had a really good show with Totally Turning. Right now we have 8 people watching online, which is cool. But we did a lot better than we expected with Totally Turning. We didn't know what to expect coming out in 2 years with COVID. We were just hoping to have more than 5 people in the rooms watching the demonstrations. And in January, we weren't sure if we were going to have a show, but we did have a show, and it was very successful. We don't have all the final numbers, but we were above the break-even point for sure. With Totally Turning, we're still waiting on all the numbers with Showcase to see where it all landed, but it was great. We had a lot of happy people. The show happened again. We're already talking about our plans for next year, and one of the big things we hope to accomplish with Carl's help and a couple other key people's help is have a hybrid show next year, and also have videotape of some, if not all, the demos. So we don't know exactly where we're going to land, but we're going to have plans in that direction. So that way, hopefully we can take it remote and have more members, not just live in seats walking around the show, but also people from around the globe participate in our show, and that'd be awesome. Carl, you ready to do the next thing?
Mention that you're monitoring the chat room for the meeting tonight.
So yeah, I'm monitoring the chat room, so if anybody online has questions, please ask, and I'll relay them to whatever's going on here in the shop. and get your voice here. Anything else?
Should we do the show and tell now?
Sure, we can do show and tell.
Okay. Why don't you start, Todd?
Where's the mic? First we have John and all of his pen turning supplies and bottle stopper supplies. Oh, he's done. It's very hard.
I brought some samples of different things that I've been doing for pen blanks and pen turnings. I do all my own pouring with Alumilite. I usually use Alumilite Clear, or Todd will use a different one. He's using the Alumilite Slow. I have a 7-minute working time, which I like. He needs a longer working time. I like to get it in and to have it start to set up fairly fast. The faster it sets up, I can manipulate colors. When it starts to turn close to a gel and you have to get it into a pressure pot, there's a sweet spot for about a minute where I go like hell and put all the colors in and try and get everything set the way I want it. Too early, it just kind of muddies up and it, you know, yellow and green, everything turns into a primary color, we'll call it another secondary color. It won't stay separated if you put it together right away when you mix it. So it's not ready. You got to get closer to being ready to set up before you put it together. I include a lot of things in it. I do coffee beans in it, so coffee beans blank for a coffee bean scoop. Yeah. I do colored pencils. Put them together with a clear top. Doing pine cones, sweet gumballs, pistachio shells.
Can you hold it up for the...
Whatever doesn't move. I get it in there. I get it in the
Right
acrylic.
on the TV.
Oh, I'm on the other one side here? Which one am I on? I'm over.
That's way. John, you're up.
Gotta stand up there. Oh, I got a 5.
Stand still, there we go.
Anyway,
There it is.
okay, there's the pistachios there. Okay. The other one is the colored pencils. Give you an idea. I do a lot with cactus and stuff. These are the pine cones here. This is prickly pear cactus. This is a blank. I've also got it turned down when it's turned into the pen. The prickly pear cactus. I do the other one also.
Todd, you want to hold them?
Troya cactus. That's the skeleton of the cactus. And I also do say the prints, where I'll do
John, can you hold it so we can see it on the camera?
a
Where's
print
that?
for the
There you go.
Jack Daniels on this one, and pour the resin on. So that's about it. You got any questions on the product? Or?
I have a question. When you use organic material like coffee beans, can you smell the coffee beans or?
When you're turning it, you're having a cup of coffee. A strong one, a very strong one. Once you seal it, afterwards, because the beans, the acrylic doesn't cover the bean as you're carving it, your beans are exposed.
Right.
I have to stabilize the beans to make them stronger, because you can crush a bean with your thumb. Can't do it after I stabilize it, make them hard. Okay? You smell it while you're turning because it's all uncovered. When you CA at the end and you coat it up, it loses the smell. Too bad, but it does. It's really nice when you're doing it. I've done some where I didn't finish it with CA and make a joke about scratch and sniff. You scratch it, you'll smell it. You will. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? No, I guess we'll move on. We got a lot to go through
All right.
tonight.
This section here is my stuff. This is all John's. So I'm using Alumilite Slow on my pours, and I also stabilize the woods. These are a bunch of different burls. This one here, I actually, Mananzas, I forget how you say that wood. It's fun to turn with, but I had some fun with this one. I painted it white, and then I painted it with different colors of blue, and then I used some gold and blue glitter in there. So I put down a little bit of epoxy. I painted with a little bit of epoxy, and then I put glitter on it so it stays there and didn't float up into the secondary pours. So this one took a little while, took a little imagination. The seashells that I put in there, I actually filled them with CA. I filled them up with super glue and let them dry before I glued them to the base, and then before I poured. Otherwise it could just start floating around and get a little air bubble in there. I didn't know how this was going to turn out, but it turned out pretty funky. I like it. This one was fun. You had a 6x6 inch mold, and you had to hot glue the burls to the sides, and then I had to use a little stick to keep them from falling over on each other at the top, and then you fill that up. And playing with the colors in epoxy is a lot of, well, you can say it's fun, but you can get in trouble really quick. This here is probably a toothpick tip of blue. This is 15 drops of yellow. It won't get any more yellow than what it already is. And this here is a toothpick of blue, and it was almost too dark. I didn't want it to be non-see-through. I wanted it to be able to see through like this, and I got a little worried. And this is a toothpick of basically violet. And you can go a full toothpick, or you can go a half toothpick, or you can go just barely touching it to get it into mix it into the epoxy.
You don't want to use a drop.
No, a drop of blue will be, you can't see through it. It's too concentrated. So you got to learn with the different colors how they play. Reds play a little different, blues play a little different, but then you get to the lighter colors like yellow. You can put half the bottle in there, and it's not going to get any more yellow than that. So they're just play a little different. These blanks I didn't make, but I bought, and that's olive tree with red and white mix, and that was just a really pretty blank. And I thought it turned into a nice pen. And these are fountain pen and rollerball pen sets that I turned them into. And I did not pour this one as well. I thought I did. No, I didn't pour this one. I bought it. And they're just really neat. All right, moving on. John?
I'm John Slazak. I just joined the club a couple of years ago. I spent a little over. We had the 2x4 contest, and I heard that at one time you had them here, so I'm trying to instigate 2x4 contests. And with to buy a 2x4 that looks good, very few knots in it. But once you get it home, depending on the project, handles that. Thanks, I got you. But you can see the shaker boxes. This was all made out of one 2x4. This is a 2x4. This is a chess set, and to make the board, instead of having to stain it, I used ingrain and flat grain, and that gave me my squares for the checkerboard. And then I did have to stain one half of the set, but if you can see, the set is actually woodworking tools. It's drills, the pawns are Phillips screwdrivers, and pliers, drills. And then the one that really surprised me, when I finished this, I put it on the couch in the living room and couldn't believe I made it, was this pair of guitars, and everything on here is 2x4, but it's been painted. I painted this black, this is painted white enamel, but it's all 2x4s, and on the inside, it's a complete authentic guitar. And I brought it to a luthier in Florida after I made it. He tapped it, and he said I should put strings on it because it has such good sound. But there's no truss rod in it, so I'm afraid that 2x4s are going to be strong enough to hold. But that was two guitars out of one 2x4. And it shows the diversified products, but you can understand how different the cut of woods is out of that 2x4 to make a guitar, to make a chess set, or any of these other things. And that's the difficult part about it. And the other thing, I've taught 3 classes here on bandsaw box making. And I was hoping for the next class that I could interest some people into making this. This is an ideal toy for a newborn. If you put a 10-month-old on it, they bobble. So you put their hands on the holder, and as they start to bobble, they start to rock, and this beautiful smile moves across their face. It's the greatest little thing. It's not difficult. I have all the jigs and fixtures to assemble it and everything else, so I'm going to try and talk some people into having a class on this. Thank you very much. Any questions? Sorry.
With the chess pieces, did you carve them or do them on a?
This was all done out of a full solid block cutout, like you do on a scroll saw. 3-dimensional cut, and what I did is the last piece that was cut, I glued them all together, and that became the case that they sit in. So each one of them will only fit in one spot off the one that it was cut from. It was just a way of using all the wood, rather than having all this scrap being thrown away.
Did you have any trouble with doing the end grain compared to the straight grain to the end grain? Usually that's the problem with gluing.
Yeah, it's coming apart, it's dried up, and you can see,
Sorry, I asked.
John, can you give him the mic?
that's the name
John,
of the
can you
game.
give
But
him the microphone,
every one
please?
of these took first
there.
place in the 2x4
Yeah,
contest, so
yeah, I can see why.
it didn't do too bad.
No.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Hi, Carl.
Oh,
You ready? Like
You
to
got
join
more?
Brian?
Oh, wait, we got more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Man.
okay. Is that just working? Oh, all right. Just quickly, I mean, we're doing a new technique called dye sublimation on Mondays, or actually any day anybody might want to do it. Just get in touch with me and I'll work with you. We have the equipment in the kitchen now. It just involves a printer and a heat press and a convection oven. This is a sample. You can go up and look at this afterwards. This was just quick and dirty. Scanned a colored sheet of scrapbook paper and printed it on the sublimation paper, and you put it in the heat press with pressure onto the wood. Whoop, onto the wood. There.
The screen.
What?
He's gonna zoom into you so you can see it online.
Oh, so
Quit moving it.
on camera.
Well, I don't, anyhow.
There you go.
Anyhow,
There we are.
yes, okay, so, now what we're working on though, my main focus is coming up with a way to do three-dimensional wood objects and eventually doing bowls and adding the color. This color doesn't come off. I scrub this with a Mr. Clean scrubby. It does not come off. And the other thing is, of course, I like new little tools, and people like John and Todd give me cutoffs from their resin and woodwork. So this is a feather that I cut out that I'm going to carve, and this is a bird that's going to be carved, and they're both combinations of wood and resin. Well, I also like little tools, and especially battery operated. So this is my newest toy. This is battery 20-volt grinder, but also buffer and anything else I want to put on the wheels. So so I don't need any power. I like to have all sorts of things that I can work off the grid and demo. And Arbitech has now come out with a new bowl gouge. Arbitech's bowl gouge is probably my favorite tool ever. And I use it to carve out the bowls of spoons or anything that saves me a lot of time with a hook knife. Anyhow, they now have this small set, which is going to be wonderful to do texture and things on bowls and any three-dimensional objects. And also they have this little planer in there that works like fantastic. So if you get a chance, go on Arbitech's YouTube site. They have hours and hours of great video on their tools, but especially on using these bowl gouges. Okay, that's it.
We had one question from online. What species of 2x4 was used to bend the shaker boxes?
I just went into either Home Depot or, I just went into Home Depot or Lowe's, and then I'd ask if they mind if I sort through, and I'd sort through by looking at regular construction grade 2x4s.
So was it pine or it was just pine?
It was just whatever they had as
You didn't do
2x4.
anything special to bend it?
No.
No steam, no.
I soaked it in hot water in a
Okay.
deep sink, and that was it. I made myself a pipe out of PVC, plugged one in, and that I could put longer pieces in it
Oh, cool.
and soak it. And I just soak it in hot water for a while and then bend it. And then, as you can see, there's some forms there. I made all my own forms, and that was made out of pressed wood glued together and then sealed. And even the wet wood wouldn't affect it when I was when doing the bending on the boxes. It's a good way to learn to make shaker boxes if you just want to fool around with a 2x4 to do it before you move into your real good woods. Thank you.
Oh, Brian, I'd like to introduce Brian. He's gonna be giving us a demonstration tonight from Urban
Industrial Design.
a local company.
Guys, I appreciate, the opportunity to come up here and chat and hang out. Tonight we're going to talk about 2 different types of resin that we have. Put this guy on here real quick. Hopefully that works and everyone can hear me. So I just wanted to, start out and kind of tell you guys a little bit about, me and my business and what we do. About 6 years ago, I started cutting wood, made some furniture, and kind of fell in love. Shortly after that, I had the opportunity to go full-time. And fast forward to where we are today, I got a couple full-time guys. We have a shop right in Colony. For those of you that are familiar with the area, we're right on the corner of Lechico Road and Central Ave. We're going to be building a new shop. We should be in at the end of the year. We're going to be on Morris Road. And as a business, our primary focus is dining and conference room tables. So in our shop, we're doing big things. There's times that we're doing 16-foot conference tables. We do service a decent amount of commercial work, and then as well as residential work. Everything that we do in our shop is custom. It is built to spec. We don't have an inventory of products. We basically just work directly with the client and talk to them about what it is they need and how we can build a product to supply them with it. About 3 years ago, we started milling our own wood. That quickly spiraled out of control. I've never heard any carpenters say that they have too much wood. So we now have mountains and mountains and mountains of wood, anything from huge walnut slabs all the way down to nice, figured, spalted, anything, maple. And so we're quickly, trying to figure out, our market and supply them with the products that they need. We were set up, for those that saw us at the NWA show, and we had a great turnout. We had all sorts of different products for all sorts of different people and all sorts of different budgets. And it was great to be set up at that show, and you can definitely plan on seeing us there next year. So tonight, let's jump into it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about epoxy, what we do in our shop, and the products that we use, and sort of how they work. In front of me, I have 2 different products. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. This is for small products or small projects. In our shop, we use this as touch-up work for fillers of knots and checks and cracks and things of that nature. Again, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. A lot of guys will actually also use this for bar tops. If you wanted to do, if you say wanted to coat this in a bar top, this is self-leveling, levels to about 1/8 of an inch. Square footage coverage sort of depends on the grit that you have sanded to. A lot depends on temperature. Anyone that's worked with epoxy knows that temperature is a very big factor in what you're doing, how quickly it's going to cure. And so again, in our shop, this is what we use for smaller fillings. It would potentially be a candidate for some of the work that has been done over there. Again, only if it's in a small quantity. If you mixed both of these together, so you have your resin and your hardener, if you mix both of those together, put them in a bucket and leave it, it'll start smoking. That's how quickly that the 2 of these together and how much heat that they will create if it's not properly mixed in a small amount and then applied to the project that you're working on. Again, temperature when you're working with epoxy is a very, very big factor. Let's jump to what's called Flowcast. This is primarily what we're using in our shop. This is referred to as a deep pour epoxy. This can go up to 1.5 inches thick. We've definitely poured at 2 1/4 thick with success, but every time I do it, kind of really got to keep an eye on it, hope I come in the morning and there's not a crack. There's certain things that we do to ensure that we set ourselves up for success. But again, in our shop, for anything deep pour, this is the product that we're using. A lot of times, if you guys, depending on sort of what you're looking at on social media, a lot of times if you see those really cool videos of guys pouring epoxy and finished product and whatnot, this is the material that they're using. May not be specifically Epoxy Flowcast. There are a lot of other manufacturers out there at this point. But we started using Epoxy about 2.5 years ago, and I'll be honest, I've actually never used another epoxy. This is the only epoxy I've ever used, and it's because I've never had an issue with it. I know the epoxy so well, I know exactly what it likes, what it doesn't like. It's my go-to epoxy. So much so that we are an authorized Epoxy dealer. We have all of this product in small and large quantities in our shop, in Colony, in stock, available for pickup. So contrary to ordering it online and waiting for it to come in, we have it in stock. We have the pigments and some other fun stuff. As our business grows and we continue and we get into our new shop later this year, we're going to have a much bigger retail area, not just for epoxy, but a lot of other things woodworking related. So let's do a little show and tell. This piece was made this past Saturday. We had a little slab sale event in our shop, and I decided that we wanted to do a slab sale in our, actually a live epoxy pour. There you go, you can see that? We wanted to do a live epoxy pour at one of our slab sales. We do our slab sales on occasion, about 4 times a year. Basically, we set up the shop, get everything all organized in our different bins. We advertise it's a one-day sale, and a lot of the local guys come in and they're able to kind of stock up on some of the material that they need. So we decided to do a live resin pour, just so people that have been sort of interested in some of this stuff have the opportunity to see one in action in a shop and ask questions to the guys that are actually doing these pours. We had a lot of really good questions and a lot of really good people that were interested in it, and a few of which ended up buying epoxy and some wood, and they're home doing their pours. So we're not only a resource for the material, but a resource to bounce questions off of. My phone this week has been abnormally going off because people have been calling me and asking me questions, and I actually truly enjoy it because I'm able to help people achieve a finished product, hopefully something similar to this, and that's kind of why we're all here. So let's talk about this particular piece and the process that we went through in order to achieve this finished product. So it all starts with selecting the wood, most definitely dry wood. That's going to play a role in this thing staying flat over time. If you're working with wood that has too much moisture in it, you're going to go through your whole finishing process, and you're going to come back in a couple days and it's going to be one way, it's going to be the other way, things happen. So you always want to start with dry wood. Second step is you want flat wood. If you take your board and it's got a twist to it and you put a lot of pressure on it, you do epoxy pour, and everything looks great, and then you release it, that pressure is going to go somewhere. It's going to twist up, things can crack. So you want to make sure that you're starting with flat wood to begin with. So you got your wood, you got your layout kind of dialed in. You're always doing your epoxy pour wider and longer than what your finished dimensions are going to be. For example, if we do if my invoice says that I need to produce a tabletop that's 36 inches wide by 72 inches long, I'm setting my form to 37 wide and 74 long. I'm going to go and I'm going to cut the whole thing out. I need extra width and extra length. We've all made those miscuts. We've all come up short. Always give yourself that little bit of oh shit factor as you're doing anything, really any carpentry. So we're always pouring wide. We're always pouring long. Next thing that we do is we build a form. This is just regular old MDF. The price of it is about doubled. And this is actually MDF light. I've never used it before. I discovered it a couple weeks ago. It's half the weight of regular MDF. Conply has it in Albany. We buy 5x12 sheets of it, and so they just happened. That was the only one they had in stock. I said I'll try it, and I really like it because it's half the weight. Yeah. So when we're building a form, it's pretty straightforward. And again, everything that we do as a business is a custom size. So I can't build one form and say we can only build this size. So what we're doing is we're cutting our bottom piece to 37 by 74, because let's say that that's the size of our table. We're covering it with what's called tuck tape. It's called tuck tape because it's from Canada. You can use regular old house sheathing tape, Tyvek tape, whatever Lowe's, Home Depot has. The reason that you're doing this is because the epoxy will not stick to it once it's cured. So, got your bottom piece, cover it with tape. Then you're going to put your sideboards on, just like this. Let me try to move some stuff out of the way here so you guys can see what's going on. Then you put up your sides like this. As you do your sides, I'm putting a line of silicone. Just regular old cheap stuff from Home Depot. It's like $4 a tube, 100% silicone. What you want is inside this joint here, you can almost see some of it hanging off. You want this silicone in there. It's absolutely imperative that you don't get a leak in your form, I'll show you the puddle on my shop from the times that we have had a leak. So you got your form. The idea is that this thing's going to hold water if you filled it with water. When you pour this Flowcast, it's pretty much like water. And it will find those little pinholes of leaks. Lesson learned, when you build a form, and if it's a big form, don't move it. Because when you move it, you flex it and twist it, and the opportunity for something to open up, it's there. And we know that because we got the puddle on the floor, remember? So you're building your form, and the silicone, it usually dries in about an hour, to the point that you can kind of poke it, it's not sticking to you, and you can kind of start working with it from there. Ideally, you want to give it, 24 hours or so. So we always build a form the day before we're ready to kind of put our wood in it. So once you got your form all set, you're then going to put your wood in it. The next thing you need to do is you need to put down pressure on the wood. So a lot of times if we're doing a big project, we always do down pressure, but especially on small projects, the resin will get underneath and almost float the wood. And it's kind of a waste of resin if you got all of it on the bottom and nothing on the top. So you need down pressure. The second thing you need to do is you need to level your form. So in our shop, we have floor drains all over the place, and they're all filled with sawdust. We don't use them, they were there when we moved in. And so because of that, all of our floors are pitched to that area. So we're constantly playing around trying to level our form. Our shop is tight, the table's not always in the same spot, nor can we leave it there when it's perfectly leveled. So we end up having to re-level it. We got a couple floor jacks from Harbor Freight. And we're sitting there playing this game and everything gets all nice and leveled. If you don't do that, all of your resin over the course of 20, 30 minutes will all kind of go to like one corner, and then your other corner is a 1/4 inch low. And then you got to go back and you got to take time and level your form. There's a lot of prep work to do. Another tip that we've learned along the way is when we do our resin pour, again in our shop we're typically doing large projects. When we do our resin pour, we'll prep everything the night before. I'll come in at 6:30 in the morning and I'll do that pour right then and there. The reason that we started doing that is because you sort of kind of want to be around to watch it. You want to keep an eye on it. You want to see what it's doing. You want to see if you have a leak. You want to see if your coloring is correct. You want to make sure and be able to pop all the bubbles as they kind of go on throughout the day. It takes time. One of the beauties about this Flowcast, and one of the reasons that you're able to pour it at 1.5 inch thickness at a time, is because it cures very slow. It's a very slow cure, and the reason being is that it's giving off very little heat as it's curing. This particular piece, even though it's not big, I poured this Saturday afternoon. The temperature in our shop is set to 62 degrees, and this thing wasn't ready to come out of the form until Wednesday. That's how long it takes. The more volume that you get together in one spot, the quicker it's going to cure. There's more epoxy, it generates more heat, the quicker it cures. There's been times that we've poured 60 liters at a time. That's like 15, 16 gallons that we've poured in one spot, and that's because it was a very, very long, very, very big table. The more that you pour, and the more that's kind of concentrated in one area, the more heat it's going to generate, the quicker it's going to cure. So again, this took a couple days for this to cure. So back to our pour. We poured first thing in the morning. Question?
How do you know when it's cured?
You can tell just when you're poking it. I mean, it's rock solid. You can you can tap it if you want. The other way that you can tell is if the center is very, very hard, but the ends are just a touch soft because they're closer to the end. There's not as much volume there, not as much heat. So if the ends are super, super hard, then you know at that point in time that you're ready to go. There have been times where I thought it was fully cured, and we'll use our CNC machine, and it starts kind of gumming up a little bit, and I can say, "Oop, we're not ready yet. Take it off. It's got to sit for another day or two." Once you start to work with the product, you can get a hand for when it's cured. When in doubt, give it more time. So, another question?
Yeah, do you actually use a moisture meter on the wood?
Yes. Yes, on the wood, always we're using a moisture meter. That thing's constantly floating around the shop.
What are you shooting for?
Single digits. So we're 8-9%. We're somewhere in there. 10-11 is pretty good. If you're in the teens, you're too high.
You have run an air conditioner or something?
We do have air conditioning in the shop, yes.
And then, have you found that, since that's a heat generating process, have you found any particular wood you shouldn't use epoxy with?
I guess I couldn't answer that question. Have I found any? No, personally, no, I have not. We haven't run across, the typical woods that we're working with are kind of native hardwoods in this area. So there's nothing particular that we wouldn't work with. I've seen guys pour with both, obviously, hardwoods and softwoods. I've seen people kind of cast epoxy and cast all sorts of things in epoxy as he did. I haven't found anything that epoxy doesn't like.
The only thing you have to worry about at all, but not liking wood, is an oil. Some of the oily wood might give you a problem, but I haven't even found that.
Yeah.
Blood, what do they call it?
Bloodwood?
Bloodwood and one or two of the other ones like that.
Yeah.
That are high in oil.
Okay.
And they still work fine for, for small stuff, but I'm doing.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's the one thing, oily wood could be a problem.
Yeah.
Moisture is a definite problem.
Yeah, moisture is definitely not our friend in
No.
woodworking. So you gotta make sure, yes, we always have a moisture meter floating around
Are
the
you
shop.
having to draw the bubbles out with heat or torch, or what do you,
Yes.
that particular product?
Yep, so the next thing that we do, once we kind of do our pour and we're around in the shop when we're watching it, we're just using like a Harbor Freight heat gun is all it is. And I actually have to toss mine out because it fell in the epoxy. So she's done. And I have a blowtorch in the shop. You need anything that produces heat. You're not, by applying heat to it, you're not playing a role in helping it cure. You're just simply popping the bubbles. We found out that that's the best, applying heat is the best way to cure, or to pop those bubbles. And as the day goes on, especially something like this that kind of has a lot of moving parts in it, it's just not a very clean, straight line like this one might be, it's gonna kind of bubble. It's gonna continue to bubble. We've had people wonder, do you shake it a bunch, does that help? Well, no, that doesn't really help. It kind of makes more bubbles sometimes. And so we've basically found that it's just important to keep an eye on it. Be around, pop the bubbles. You don't have to do it. You can do it, once at the end of the day if you wanted to. You don't have to do it right away. Is it oddly satisfying to do it? Absolutely. So we do it a couple times throughout the day.
So what happens when you pop the bubble? Does it come to the surface?
So the bubbles, like I said, the viscosity of this is just like water. So bubbles are going to rise.
Okay.
And then throughout the day they rise, and it's because the epoxy is going in and air is coming out.
Yeah.
And so yes, they will rise. There have been times that I have found that there's an air pocket sort of underneath, and that's only in an odd scenario that, for whatever reason, air couldn't escape out. And usually you only find that once you flip it over and start surfacing the bottom, you got an air pocket underneath. Usually not a big deal, you can either chip it out and fill it. If it's the underside of the table, depending on your scenario, might not matter. But basically, yes, all the bubbles are going to rise, and then throughout the day, again, you're going to just pop them all. Get every one that you can. Yes?
Are you prepping the edges of your wood with CA or some sort
Excellent
of...
question. So this has been open for debate. I ended up on the phone with the rep from Epoxy, and we had a long conversation because that question is a common question. The answer is no, we are not. And the reason being, before we do our pour, this live edge in here, we're sanding it to like an 80 grit. We're cleaning it up. We don't pour with the bark on. We always clean it off. We always get right down into the wood. Their reasoning is that authentic, original bond between the epoxy and the wood is what's playing such a role in this thing staying so strong. They said that by doing a coat of epoxy ahead of time, letting it dry, doing a quick little sand, then doing your full-size pour, in a way compromises that initial connection. I don't know if that's true or not. This was their recommendation. We've never done otherwise, and we've never had an issue. So I've never done it previously. I've heard that it will lessen the amount of bubbles that you have by you're absolutely right. And in smaller projects, that's probably wise to do that. You know what I mean? for us, when you have this big slab of wood and this big slab of wood, and the only thing holding it together is epoxy, that connection is super important. So again, we were instructed to not prep it, and that's been our process all along.
You think the viscosity of it's so thin that it's actually penetrating into the wood and creating a nice...
Oh yes, absolutely,
bond?
yeah, it's definitely going in it. If, when we pour, we always pour, get extra on top, and it's a big mess, and we kind of surface back down. And when we're sanding, I can be flat to the touch to this wood, but I'll see big, you know, big marks of where that epoxy was, because it's down in that grain. It goes in there as far as it'll let. You know, you had a question?
Yeah, you mentioned that you have to secure the wood so it doesn't float back up.
Yes.
Are you actually putting like a weight on it, or how are you doing that?
So the way that we do it, I don't have a whole lot up here for demonstration. So what we do is we'll put like a block of wood on each side, right? And then we would put a bar over the top of it, and then clamp down to the table. So what that's doing is it's putting 2 pressure points right here in the wood. And a full-size table, we'll have 8 clamps going along the thing. We have a 4 foot by 8 foot table that has big metal. It's basically all welded out of 2 by 3. It's dead flat. And so we were able to clamp to that table, knowing that that table is a perfectly flat wood, you know, work surface to work on. So again, down pressure. You can use weights. If you're doing a small pour like this, there's no reason that you can't do this and just put a weight on it. You know. Let's see, what else do we do? So once we do our pour and we've kind of gone through the curing process, our next move is to break it out of the form once it's fully cured and you know everything's nice and hard. In our shop, we're fortunate we have a Laguna 5x10 CNC machine, and so anything like this, we'll put on the CNC machine and we go over and we surface the whole top of it. We bring ourselves back down flat to the wood surface, the wood and resin surface. Then we'll flip it over, do the whole bottom side, and then I'll set the machine and have it go and cut the whole thing out. And then from there we start our finishing process. We work through the grits. We start at 80 grit. Go for our finishing process. We typically stop around 220. We're exploring new finishes and what an open topic finishing is. Everyone's got their methods. Everyone's got things that work good, that don't work good. What we use is called Rubio Monocoat. It's a number of different oils paired with a hardener. And for
what did you say it was?
It's called Rubio Monocoat. And so basically that product works good for us and what we deliver to clients, a medium durability product. And for us it works good because we deliver a product, it's a low sheen, it's not a very high gloss. I'm able to give the client the correct cleaner and the correct touch-up oil. So they're not calling me every time they get a scratch in their polyurethane top, because there's no, you know, they don't have a way to fix that themselves. A little bit of touch-up oil and the correct cleaner, they get a pretty good shot of maintaining that surface, you know, on their own. Some of the things that we do in the shop is we take a lot of time to really choose our layout for the wood. They're referred to as river tables, but we really love just something that's full of character, something that has a lot of movement, something that's symmetrical in a way. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Some clients come to us and they say, the more character in the wood you can get, the better. We want stuff that's half rotted and fallen apart and this and that, and then when you cast it in resin, man, what an impressive piece of wood. So contrary to, you know, maybe 5-8 years ago when people were buying wood, they'd say, I only want the clean, straight stuff. Yeah. Well, I want the stuff that's half rotted, all curvy, stuff that you would just toss in the firewood. I might want to mill that. Things have changed. So for us, in our industry, I would say probably about half of the work that we're doing is resin related. Whether it's a full size, we shipped a 12 foot by 48 inch, absolutely beautiful walnut resin river table, conference table, went all the way out to Utah. A guy found me online and just liked our social media and the videos that we posted, and He had an open budget, which is great. And we had the slabs in stock. We had pulled this tree out of the woods that had been sitting on the ground for almost 10 years. And so it was all rotted, all kind of starting to rot up. But once we milled that thing open, that heartwood was solid. And it was just such an incredible tree. The coloring, everything about it. It had nails, it had a couple little nails in it, and it created the black streaks in walnut. And it was great because he did a black resin, and he did a nice kind of dark surface color. And so just the coloring of everything was just so impressive. And a number of years ago, I feel that, you know, that tree would have been passed up. You know, and so being able to cast something in resin isn't new, but doing it in large format, large tables like we're doing is rather new, only a couple years. So I think that's about it. Is there any other questions? Does anyone have any other questions about, yes?
Your epoxy, does that put off much of a smell or?
Nope, can't even smell it.
Yeah.
So, you know, they refer to, I think it's even here, it's, you know, bio-based. One of their claims kind of along the way as a company is that, you know, they're using better materials. I think a lot of times people back in the day, epoxy was like this toxic stuff. And it smelled. And, you know, whenever you used it, you had a headache. And, you know, this stuff, we pour it, you don't smell anything. You know? The other things that I have here, what else is in this little show and tell bag? We got a couple.
Do you have to wear a respirator with this one or no?
Nope.
No?
Don't smell anything. I mean, it does have a smell to it. If you opened up your hardener and stuck your nose real close to it, you would start to catch a smell. But, you know, any chemicals, you never do that. But when you mix this together, nope, no smell.
So are you mixing by, site volumes? Are you weighing this stuff?
Volume. This is by volume.
Your site?
The resin is a little bit heavier than the hardener. And I know that because I tried doing the volume thing and they were the same height in the cups and that one's heavier than that one. I said, well, that doesn't work. A lot of this resin stuff we've kind of figured out just by trial and error. A lot of times that's how you learn.
Does it matter if you put the hardener into the resin or the resin into the hardener?
Nope. I don't believe so, no. If you screw up your ratios, I've done it. Too much hardener is a bad thing because it'll make it cure quick.
That's brittle.
Yeah. And that is going to lead to a crack. And again, we talked about heat and how important that is. You basically don't ever want to let it cure too quick. Too much heat is a bad thing, get a crack. So with Flowcast, this takes, again, a number of days to cure. And again, it's very, very much so temperature related and volume, volume related. But yes, if you don't do your ratios correct, it can lead to problems. In our shop, we're typically mixing, so these are available in 3, 6, 12, and 30. Those are the size that we're doing. And typically I'm mixing a whole kit at once. I'm never mixing just a little bit of this and just a little bit of that. I'm mixing the whole thing at once. That way there's no questions about my ratios being off just a hair. But for smaller projects, this kit might complete 10 projects for you. So your ratios have to be spot on every single time. And if you get to the end of your kit and you have a lot more hardener than you do resin, or vice versa, somewhere along the way something goofed up. I've been there.
What's the shelf life once you open it?
That's a good question. Quite some time. I've had material in the shop, an open and then closed can. It had to have been 6 to 7 months that it was in there. I noticed no difference. I'm sure there is a particular shelf life. I'd have to find the data sheet on this material. I don't know off the top of my head. Most of the stuff that comes in our shop is either used or sold pretty quick, so I don't know the particular shelf life once it's open. That is a good question because not everyone is doing large volume stuff. This kit might last them a full year, so finding out that shelf life would be an important number to know. Yep.
Okay, let's talk costs.
Okay.
Okay, so the amount of resin that small,
Yep.
small table, I don't know what that is, that 18 inches?
We had
20
poured
inches?
this, it was 22 by 22 when we poured it, and it's a 20-inch circle currently.
Okay, and it's less than a third, you'd say, of resin?
Mhm.
And how much resin is in that?
So we poured a,
Maybe you could lift it up a
yeah, of
little
course.
bit.
So we did a 6-liter kit for this, and it was a little excessive. I think it really only needed like 4.5. This is a 3-liter kit, just for reference. The cost of the 6-liter kit, I believe, is $138. So you probably could have done this plus a smaller pour of some sorts. So for $140, right here, the pigments that we sell are, I believe, $12. And then for the form, I think the wood was like $60, you know, so you're like a touch over $200 in just material cost had you come to me to buy everything for this particular piece right here. And again, this was actually a little bit bigger. Like this was a square before we did this, and I, for whatever reason, just decided to cut it out into a circle because I don't know, it just fit. It just made sense for the piece, you know. And so yeah, you're right about $200 for most of your material costs for that. It's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap.
No, so that would be the price that we would, I mean, if we did it ourselves.
Yes. Yep.
So how much is the smallest kit like that?
So this small kit, this is the UV Epoxy, and again, this is typically used for a lot of touch-ups and cracks and things of that nature. This is $48. And for us in the shop, it goes a pretty long way. I mean, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bar tops today, and a really big single width walnut slab that we were going around touching up cracks and checks and things like that. And we only used like half of that. And we hit, you know, there's checks and knots and stuff all over the place. And we only used about half of that. We poured a little bit, you know, about half of a cup, went through and did our thing. Let it sit for a little while because it always finds a little spot. You gotta go back and fill it again. You gotta fill it again. So $48, like, goes a pretty long way. If you're doing a full table, a full bar top, you'll start eating up material pretty quick, and you're a couple $100. You know.
That's one of the considerations with epoxy. It's an expensive endeavor, but you want to try to work your piece so your waste is minimized.
Always.
Because it's dollars, it's not cents. It's
Yeah.
dozens of dollars. Well, like my disc there, I poured that in a bucket. It was bigger than that before I started turning it. Just the burl and the epoxy alone, I was $120 just in material. And if I screw that up, it's $120 down the drain.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's, you know, and from a business standpoint, I mean, time and materials, it's money. We're a business. That's what we do is we make money. And, you know, if you're wasting materials and you're not doing your ratios right, or you're over pouring, and you know, you can start seeing the dollars and cents just kind of add up as time goes on. Yeah.
Does that UV stand for ultraviolet? Is it
It does have a UV protectant in it. Yes.
Can you use it outside, or
You
just?
can.
Or is it just the sunlight that comes in
Yep.
from?
So yes, you can use it outside. Anything you put outside it's a matter of time. I have never found that perfect product that is going to just stand up to everything that the sun has to
UV
offer.
protection is not UV proof.
Correct. Yes.
At all.
You'll get a couple
At
years
all.
out of it. You know.
Yeah.
This is good quality stuff. If you buy cheap stuff, it's gonna amber pretty quick. This stuff has been used, so let me think, 22, so in 20, one of the tree guys I networked with bought slabs and this product to do an outside bar. It gets direct sunlight for like 3 hours a day. It is exposed to the elements, but it is technically undercover. And I actually talked to him about it the other day, and I said, how's your bar top doing? He goes, it's great, it looks good. Can't wait to use it this summer. So he's 2 years into it, gets a couple hours of sunlight, gets rained on, that sort of thing, and he's still rocking and rolling. So, yeah.
On your CNC machine, is that like a carbide face mill or something you use as a cutter?
Yes. So it's a tri-tip, and we actually just upgraded to a bigger one that has 5 blades on it. So similar to like a helical head planer, we have a bunch of little carbide tips. This one has 3 of them, And that's what's going over the top, all the way over, up and down, up and down, up and down. We've had good success with that particular bit, and so we got the 3.5-inch version of it, which is, that thing is massive. It's almost scary when you turn on the machine.
And you sand with a CNC machine or by hand?
Our particular machine, no, we don't. Some machines do have that option. We found that working with epoxy, if you were to put this through a helical head planer, it's going to go through, it's going to kind of chip and pull and kind of leave little divots. And the same thing would happen with that particular type of tool that we use on the CNC machine. However, what's the beauty of a CNC machine is I have the ability to turn my spindle speed up and my feed rate down. So I'm going really slow, I'm almost like polishing it as I go. So as long as you go really slow up and down, the epoxy won't pull, it'll cut really, really nice. And then from there we're doing our 80 grit finish to kind of work our way down and get rid of any tooling marks from the machine, and then just kind of working up through the finishes there.
So how would somebody at home that doesn't have a CNC machine then do a fairly, even that size top?
So I'll tell you, because that's how I used to do it. $99 Ryobi router and 3-inch C-channel to make what's called a router sled. So what you're doing is you're allowing your router to go over the top, and you're just going to go real slow up and down the whole thing. Tools today sells like a 1.25 inch diameter. They refer to it as like a surfacing bit, a fly cutting bit, and that has just 2 little carbide tips on it. I think it's $45. So with that particular setup, you're going to make a mess. I know because I used to do it before we had our machine. And you're going to go over the top nice and slow, up and down, drop your bit a little bit, up and down, up and down. You're achieving the same finishings that I'm getting with my CNC machine.
Okay. Now you get one other question.
Oh, keep going.
So, are you using a Facebook page, or how do you know when these like monthly wood sales or demos would be?
Yes, absolutely. So we are on social media, our Facebook page and our Instagram. It's Urban Industrial Design. We also do have a mailing list, and through that we're basically announcing our slab sales about 2 weeks ahead of time is usually what we're going to do. We also have cards up here, and so typically what we're doing is spring, midsummer, late summer, and fall. So our next slab sale is going to be this June. I don't know exactly yet. We're getting an iDry vacuum kiln delivered in 1 week, and I'm stuffing it with walnut, and whenever that's out is when we're having our next slab sale. Because right now I'm out of material because our last slab sale kind of cleared me out. So
That's a bad thing.
What size slabs are you normally going for? What are you looking for?
everything.
Everything?
So we just had a wood delivery today. There was some walnut in there that was like 42 inches wide, but they're short. They're only like 6 feet because it was a very tight space where they had to get it out of, and so they had to cut them down into short sections, and they didn't have the crane there, so they couldn't crane the whole thing up. So anything big walnut, we're interested in. So are a lot of other people. Anything middle-sized walnut, 20 inches, 22 inches, that works good as well. Anything unique, so if you have, an ambrosia maple that's got all sorts of curves and it's half rotted and like just cool stuff, I'll take it. So slabs big, because as a furniture business, that's typically what we're building with. We're either putting 2 of them together or a single width table. From that big tree, you have the second and the third, and then the limb woods. We take all that too, and we mill all that. That cycles down into, I think, competitively priced products that we can put in the hands of other businesses and hobbyists. We had a great, I think it was probably the most popular bin there, our last slab sale. We had, it was 8/4, it was live edge one side, hard maple, 4 feet long, kiln dried surface, and I think they were $10 each. And I mean, people were just gobbling them up. You use them for shelving, all kinds of stuff. And for us, it works out good because it generates cash flow. Literally all of the money that we made from that last slab sale, I spent yesterday and today by buying more wood. We're just going to keep buying more wood. And so we have an inventory now of pretty much anything domestic, kind of everything in the area. And we're milling it to now different thicknesses. We're milling mantles, and we're milling 5/4 material, anything in between. We usually used to only mill 8/4 stuff. Well, I need a little bit more variety for people that are doing different types of projects. For us as a business, we're always, starting with 10, 12/4 material to do a resin, full-size resin tables, because you need that thickness. But not everyone else is doing what we're doing, so I need to, provide product for people that are doing all sorts of different stuff. At the NWA show, I learned guitar making is a pretty big thing, and I learned about, how and why they're using all quarter saw material. And so as we're milling, I told, my sawyer that, hey, I need you to mill me a full skid of quarter saw and walnut, because down the line, I want to be able to provide maybe product for these guys, and hopefully it's clean material. Whenever you get material, 25% of it is great stuff, 50% of it is 25% is firewood, but let's try to do something else with it. That's usually the breakdown of the material. Question?
You just mentioned your sawyer. Do you have a sawyer as part of your business?
Yes, absolutely. So, my sawyer is been with me for 3.5 years now. So he had a very good interest in milling. So we used to just set up and mill in our parking lot. Lee, who's a member here, has milled for me many times. And so my sawyer now, Nick, I would always involve him in our milling process. He was just so interested in it, loved it. He's a country boy, so he likes machines and stuff like that.
And what is your capacity for?
Yes. So essentially, he has now started his own business, and he's a subcontractor for me full time. And I couldn't be happier to support him in his endeavors and where he's going with his business. So he has 2 mills. The first mill he has is a Hudson. It's a dedicated slabber. I think he can do 16 feet long and up to 52 inches in width.
Cool.
He has a Granberg chainsaw mill, and I believe that is also right around 50 inches in width. And then he just recently got a Timber King 2000, so that's a fully hydraulic portable bandsaw mill.
Yeah.
So that's allows him to buzz through logs a lot quicker, a lot of medium stuff, and I think his capacity on that is like 28, 29 inches. Really impressive mill. It really is.
You mentioned Lee, Lee, and when we get logs donated, occasionally we'll get some that are too big that he can handle.
Okay.
So it's good to know you
Yes,
can handle.
absolutely. I don't have any of his cards with me, but I invite you to take one of my cards, shoot me an email, I'll connect you guys, so the next time that you have a mill, or I'm sorry, a log.
Lee already knows about you, so.
Okay, good, yeah, get it through
What's
Lee.
this guy's name?
His name is Nick Boss, and the name of his company is Heartwood Timber and Designs. Our property on Morris Road is where we're doing all of our milling. We have heavy equipment and all that stuff. So depending on the particular log, if there's a way to get it to us, we can unload it, we can mill it, we can stack it, sticker it, the whole process, and get it back. So milling is another resource that we're going to be able to offer. Our iDry vacuum kiln, I probably have that thing booked out for the whole year, but we're going to be kind of starting to offer that service to people that have their own stock of material and want to get it into a kiln. We're still learning about drying, so I can't promise you it's going to be perfect. So we need a couple kiln loads that we want to run through and kind of learn it and learn the machine and what it likes and what it doesn't like. But down the line, that is another service that we're going to be able to offer to local guys that have stock and need it dried. So
We specialize in air drying.
yeah, listen, we do too.
The shaker barns are full of
Yeah.
dry lumber that's air drying for a minimum of 2 years.
Yes, exactly. That's it. For us, it was bare minimum a year before you put it into a kiln. And some of these slabs are very big and very thick, and you either got to let them sit for a very long time or understand what you're doing with kiln drying and ensure that you don't get pockets and things like that of moisture in there. Air drying, there's nothing wrong with that. If you needed to speed it up, kiln drying is the way to do it. We've been running everything through a kiln just so we know that it's right where it needs to be on the quicker time frame. I think that's about it. Yeah, another question?
Yeah, when you actually sand it afterwards, is that what you said? You start with the 80 grit, or you
Yes.
use a hand sander?
Yep.
or-
We just have it's a Festool 6-inch palm sander, and we'll go 80, 120, 150 grit with that, and then we actually have it's an 11-inch It's called the gem sander. It's basically like a floor sander, but just handheld. 11-inch disc. And that really plays a role, especially in full-size tabletops. If you're using your hand sander all the way around, in the right lighting, you're going to see all of your sander marks. The 11-inch gem sander works really well because it's such a big surface, and the way that it spins will kind of eliminate some of those marks that you see in the odd lighting. So we'll do that 150, 180, and 220. And then that brings me to here. The finish that we use wants to go down into the surface. If you close up all those wood pores because you're up to 1500 grit, you know, for our particular finish, it needs to get down into the wood. It doesn't want to just sit on top. So yes, back to the original question, we're sanding from 80 all the way up.
Up to 220, and Rubio Monocoat.
Yep. I don't have any with me, but that is another product that we do carry in the shop.
Is that pour on or spray on, or how's that?
So it's a pour-on product. The idea behind Monocoat, and again, it's in the name, Monocoat meaning one coat. So you do your ratios, 1 to 3. Saturate the surface, let it sit for 10 minutes. What it's doing during that time is it's going down into the surface. Once you sit about 10, maybe 15 minutes, you're going to buff off all the excess oil. And I mean, you know, really do your best to clean it up, get anything off of it. Let it sit about 24 hours. And then from there, you got yourself a pretty durable finish. My own dining room table, actually let's talk about the kitchen table because that's the one we actually use. We kick the crap out of it. I mean, everything ends up there. It's just like the catch-all in the house, you know, and that's like 2.5 years old now. It still looks great. It definitely has a couple nicks and scratches, and as most wood surfaces will, but it's really a great product.
That's essentially a white bond finish then.
Yes. Yep.
You're not doing anything afterwards. So
It's a white bond finish. It's good in our shop because we don't got to worry about dust getting in it. You do urethane coat, you can't let dust get in that. Our shop is tight, you know, and we can't afford to have downtime because we don't have a spray room, we don't have that space. And
so you're a single space shop?
Yes, everything's one open area.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And your new shop, are you gonna have designated areas or not?
Fingers crossed. So we should be fully approved by the end of the month. We're in underwriting, the very end of underwriting right now. Anything could happen with the bank, but we're looking really good. We should be doing site work in the next 4 weeks. It's a 10,000 square foot building, and the whole front of it's going to be dedicated to about 2,500 square feet, dedicated to wood slabs and the products that we want to, you know, sell. In time, we are going to put in a spray room. The price of everything just went up, so I got rid of all the bells and whistles that I wanted. We are going to put in a spray room, and other than that, yes, it's pretty much a wide open shop. For what we do, we bring in with a forklift full skids of wood, and we're breaking down all sorts of material. We need the space. Dicing it up into different rooms sort of limits us in a way. So really the only room that we're going to make, I finally will finally have an office. That'll be nice. Right now the storage room is where my little desk is. So that'll be nice to have my own office, and then we will have a spray room, not initially. We're going to get our CO first and do all that stuff and then put a spray room in after. But at the end of the day, we're going to pretty much be a wide open shop. So, yeah, that should be good. We're hoping to do a big slabs, let's call it a moving sale in October. So I'm going to clear out the whole shop so we don't have to move it to the new shop. So that's pretty much it. So anything deep pour related, I'd like to be your source for questions. If you have questions, you're welcome to pop into the shop. I think it might be cool at one point in time to, you know, open it up to underwriting members to come into the shop when we're doing a full-size pour. You know what I mean? So we do them on occasion. I had a job move forward today. It's a 6 foot by 6 foot L desk resin that we're gonna do in one really long pour.
Including the L?
So the L is gonna start as a straight piece. It's gonna start as one straight piece of wood, and then we're gonna kind of cut the triangle out to bring them together. That's gonna be a walnut, and actually this color, Maui, is this color. So that job moved forward. We should be doing that in the next couple of weeks. So the idea of, open it up to the members to come on in. This is the date, 8 a.m. We're doing a pour. Come on in, let's chat. I think that's something pretty cool. And it's always cool to tour someone else's shop. I had a great time just walking through here and seeing what you guys are up to. And I said earlier that I'm ashamed to admit I've never turned anything. I've been woodworking for 6 years now. I've never turned anything. It's not what we do. It's not the product we offer. But that doesn't mean I can't use a lathe. So, at some
That's
point.
how I got my lathe.
Really?
Furniture maker decided he wanted to turn something.
Yeah.
He bought a Powermatic just like we have here in the shop.
Yeah.
He used it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then it sat in his shop for 2 years.
Oh, really?
And he sold it to me for half price.
Good deal.
You got it.
You great deal.
Good deal.
Yeah, you did good. In our shop, we tend to have a little bit bigger stuff. Our latest machine, we got a brand new Time Saver 36-inch wide planer sander combo, and so that's really good for really bringing down surface. All of our bar tops that we did today, all walnut glue ups, and literally in one pass, I mean you're right down to an 80 grit finish, and it's just. We used to rock a 1984 Time Saver 36-inch, just single sander head. I mean, it would take us pass after pass after pass. And that thing was a workhorse. And I loved it because it was so manual. There's no fancy, this new machine has all these fancy safety features, and sometimes it's a pain, but it's there for good reason. That and our CNC machine are pretty much the two machines that we use most in the shop, because I can make things flat and straight and square, and I mean, that's what I do when we do tables. So those are pretty much the two main topics that we have in the shop. But yeah, it's always cool to see someone else's shop. I'd love to give you guys a tour and talk to you a little bit more about what we do. And hopefully you're there when there's a full dry kiln load coming out, so you can see the material and how we break it down and the different bins it ends up in and that sort of thing. So, question?
What's the name of your finish again?
Rubio
Rubio.
Monocoat. Quick Google search, it should pop right up. Our website is on our business card. You can purchase it through the website. You can purchase all the epoxy through the website. On the website, you can select local pickup. So if you wanted to purchase it ahead of time, we'll just have it ready for you the next morning in the shop. Business hours are 7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday. So during regular business hours, you're more than welcome to just pop in the shop and chat, pick up any materials that you guys might need, answer any questions you might have, that sort of thing. Anything else?
Great.
Cool. I appreciate you guys having me up here. Thank you.
In other words, it's bedtime for you.
Listen, I gotta be at the shop at 6. That's just the way it works. Yeah.